are talking about the patient journey part 2. We were ambitious in the first one. We thought we could cover everything. It didn't happen. We were talking about phone skills, broken appointments, and scheduling, and we couldn't get past that. That was phenomenal. And of course, we could spend a lot more time on it, but I wanted to do all of it. So I decided, in my infinite wisdom, okay, that's a kind of a joke here, but I decided let's split it up. So you can watch the recording on the website, allstardentacademy.com, where we focused on phone skills and scheduling and things like that in detail. And today I want to talk about the patient experience. And part of that will be case acceptance. And essentially the patient journey we're talking about is, how does this COVID-19 situation affect the All-Star training? And it's very interesting. When I did a little mastermind with the coaches, they're like, it's as relevant or even more relevant than it was. Especially when we talked about rapport skills and these things, they're so important that you have that foundation. So for students that are members on the call, they're going to understand that the systems we're talking about, and there's probably 30 hours of training on rapport skills, scheduling, broken appointments, the patient experience. That's the foundation. And so what we want to talk about today is the nuances. What about the patient experience is going to change? Okay. Or where are some areas that rather instead of change that we have to have a little more focus on, especially when you start bringing in social distancing and things like that. Now, we're not going to get into detail about OSHA related standards of care because they're different per state and they're always changing. And as dentists, you know best, and you're always going to be on the lookout for the best procedures. But what we focus on is how can we're focused on the patient's perspective, okay? Because you can do everything clinically perfect. And I visited some, not dentists, but medical offices, and they're following all the paperwork. Did you call? Did you meet this person? Did you do this? And they're following it, but it doesn't feel warm. It doesn't feel inviting. And that's what we are about. Okay, is how can we make this an amazing patient experience, no matter what? Yeah, Larissa, watch with your camera doing the, yeah. So we're going to, let me start off with, and coach, let me introduce the coaches actually. And I actually made some notes from our meeting yesterday, and each coach, I'm going to come to you and have you you did some great stuff yesterday. I'm going to have you kind of, come back to that a little bit. So what we have on the call today, we have Eric Guzzardo, our head instructor, everybody. And we have Eric Vickery, our KPI performance coach. We have Larissa Bertoni, our kind of insurance front office specialist coach. Dana, superstar, unicorn front office, great all-around coach, amazing person. We were on a call yesterday with our members, and I had like 5 of her coaching clients like, Dana's amazing. And then we had some of Eric's clients certainly in the call, and Robyn and so on. So it's amazing coaches that are so happy to clients support their coaches. Coaching is amazing. I'm so grateful to have all of you here. Robyn Reis, our VP of coaching, as well as our hiring director. So what Robyn does, in addition to oversee the coaches, with her amazing background, not just as a coach, but running multiple offices, her and Larissa help our dentists hire people. And we're going to send an email out to our members next week because we're getting a lot of response and need for hiring, not just front office, but hygienists and assistants. Because some people either won't come in, or they're in a class that is too dangerous to come in. And so this might be a time where we have to find people. And there might be some, as Larry talked about in prior webinars, team members that you thought were great, and they're really kind of either taking advantage or they're not being a team player. And it might be time to find someone. So I know Robyn's been on Upwork, or where do you look on a lot of the, not Upwork, but a lot of the sites we're hiring. And there's some great candidates out there. So if there's interest, let us know, and I can get you over to that department. Great. So, and of course, Heather Nottingham, She's here. She's our VP of training. She's our phone skills instructor. And she also did some in our patient experience course in customer service. She provided some great insight there. So that's our team. Am I missing anybody here? I got everybody? Cool. Excellent. And I'm Alex Nottingham. And I keep everybody going here. All right. The patient experience. Larry, can you give us a little kind of overview of the patient experience and how this situation requires some different focus or on the patient here? What's different and what needs to be improved or focused on from the perspective of the patient experience?
Well, what's really different now is that we're taking additional precautions to continue to make sure that patients feel comfortable and safe in your office and while they're receiving care. What we have to remember during emotional times like this, everybody has a heightened awareness. And what I mean by that is they're paying closer attention to you now, more so than they ever have, because things are unfamiliar to them and they're new, and people are concerned, and some are even afraid. So they're paying closer attention to you more now than they ever have before. So that means they notice all the things that we never pay attention to. We just kind of take certain things for granted because we've always taken care of ourselves in a dental practice, and we've always protected our patients as well. So it's second nature to us, but it's not second nature, to the person who's coming through the door. So you have to remember, patients have always expected flawless performance. And this is where the training comes into play, is that they've always expected that you know how to do your job and that you know a little bit about how everybody else does their job. And so, again, particularly for the folks on the front line who are answering the phone, knowing, hey, when you get that question, what are you doing differently? Or should I put this off? Is this a good time to come in? Are you able to anticipate that you were going to get that question and you're prepared for it? And that you do know what the hygienist is doing. You know what the dental assistants are doing. You know what the doctors are doing. Heck, I even know what we're doing here. We're even going to wipe off your pen after you use it, or we're going to give it to you. So flawless performance is going to be more important today. That training that you do is more important and comes to the forefront now than ever before. And it's probably more relevant now because people are paying attention to what you're doing. And so with that, they expect a seamless experience. And so that's why you've got to rehearse how you're going to be bringing them into the office and following the steps for the screening and the social distancing and all that, because they don't expect that they're going to walk in and you're going to make them feel like they've done something wrong. Okay? Because when they start feeling like, what do you mean I'm doing something wrong? Because when they just walked into your practice and said hello, they thought they were being warm and friendly, and that was okay. And if you're like, hey, back off, what are you doing near me? You're not supposed to be standing there, get on the sticker, where the tape mark is on the floor, then you're going to have patients who are like, well, I guess maybe I shouldn't have come here today if you guys aren't ready. So the example that I always give about it is every single one of us have been invited to someone's home for dinner when they were not ready, for us. My wife and I have certainly been invited to folks' home, and we got there and they weren't quite ready for things, and you're trying to help out, or you don't know where to stand and they don't know what to do with you because they're trying to do stuff. You get that feeling, and you know how you feel. You feel like, I think I should leave. We're going to go have a glass of wine somewhere, and then we're going to come back when you're ready. We don't want patients feeling that way. So working on that seamless experience with people about how you're going to bring them in the door, who's going to get ready. You might have multiple people prepared to do this just in case two people show up at one time. Just because you stagger their appointments doesn't mean they're all going to come at the time that you're anticipating. So understanding what everybody does is very important, and knowing what everybody is doing so that anybody can answer those questions, and then working on that seamless experience for the patient is going to be real important, and you're going to have to practice it. And so the smaller nuances are the things like, I'm not accustomed to somebody coming up to me with a mask on. you know? And so, and I like to smile. That's how I show people I'm happy or I'm in a good mood. But with a mask on, I can't do that anymore. So how will I do it with my eyes? You know what I mean? It sounds awkward, but you're going to have to practice that. Our voice is also muffled when we're talking underneath the mask. You're going to have to practice talking to people. Can you understand me when I'm talking right now? Because people might not correct you. And if they don't hear everything that you're saying to you, something that was really important about the $1 million they were going to give you, we're going to have a problem with those patients because they're not going to blame us that they didn't understand what was going on. They're going to blame you. So working out how you're going to have all those issues, I always explain it's all hands on deck, because we want everyone to be ready. When this patient shows up, what are we going to do? When that patient shows up, what are we going to do? If they don't have a pen, if they don't have their screening form filled out, if they haven't been screened, how and where is all of that going to happen? We don't want it to seem like it's something awkward or that they're doing something wrong. Because if they feel like they're doing something wrong, then they're going to sense, maybe I shouldn't have done this, if I'm making any sense. So I feel like the smaller nuances is working out that flawless experience, getting the training in place, anticipating those questions that you're going to get, and then work towards a more seamless kind of experience, so that it could run very smoothly for the patient. I will just tell you our own experiences. We're all concerned about this. I installed a sneeze guard this morning, at the office, and at the same time, 3 patients walked in, you know what I mean? They just rubbed up against me, and I'm thinking, are you supposed to be doing that? Because I was right in the window where patients are greeted, and it's like they just think it's all fine, and it's just like, back off, let me move out of your way. Why don't you come forward? you know so it's those things. So that's what I want to throw out there for everybody. It's being flawless and being seamless.
And that makes a lot of sense. We have to be graceful and prepared. And we talked about as well, role playing and practicing these situations. I know one of our dentists, Al, was saying he's doing a soft launch with his team without patients to see how is this going to flow. And restaurants do this. We want to borrow from other industries what are the best situations, because there will be somebody who comes in your face, right? I had people come today to work on our sprinkler system, and I put a mask on because they're all in my face. They're not social distance. They don't understand this maybe, but so for me to get closer, I put on the mask. And I think we got to learn, how can we gracefully and tactfully say, oh, excuse me, miss, or whatever, for your own protection, whatever, we're doing social distance, whatever the verbiage might be, to make sure that they don't feel offended, right? And that they see, and this is really important as we talk about the 5-letter word policy that gets me going here, right? We'll talk about that later, that we have to know it's for your benefit, not just because we're not prepared. And I think maybe it was Robyn who said, we'll come back to this later, that policy means I'm not sufficiently prepared to handle a situation. However, that was a really good line. Okay, we want to prepare. Let me go to Dana. Dana, you talked about a great line. I want you to hear from you about soft skills, that this is an opportunity to become an expert on soft skills and so important. Tell us a little bit about that and why it's so important in general, and even now, even more so.
Yeah, now more so than ever. But patience, it's what I was talking about was, we've got to have protocols for these soft skills. We've never really focused on these. I mean, it's always been make it your own. This is, the gist of what we want to say. But we really have to look at how are patients perceiving everything right now. And we've got to make sure that we come across in a way that we want to. And Larry had a great point. When you're like this, it's hard to convey that. You don't know. We have to get used to saying new things on the phone. We're going to pre-register your payment information. And people are going to get angry and upset because they don't understand. And we have to be able to deal with that and realize it's not personal. It's just, we need to educate why. We have to set those expectations to be able to communicate better in all the situations that we're going to come up against. And role playing and rehearsing is the only thing that we can do to get there.
Yeah, I like what you said. The soft skills protocol.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times when you have these situations, whether it's hurricanes or pandemics, things, they show you where you're already vulnerable, right? And
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to get into certainly the health vulnerabilities, we see that, but from a practice vulnerability of the patient experience, we see we are deficient to most offices on the soft skills. We do not see that as valuable. I think it's very interesting, and I don't know, maybe a little initially um, cross-intuitive or anti-intuitive. I'm seeing an uptick in people that are signing up for the all-star training, that are signing up for coaching now. Um, but now that I've talked to more and more dentists personally, I see the need, because I see we need this to have a competitive advantage. Not only that, forget even competing against other dentists. We need this to even be able to interact with our patients, to get them to come, to get them to feel comfortable, to use this as an opportunity. So typically dental offices are weak with that. And this is where like the all-star training as a foundation helps. What we're talking about now is it's even more needed, and it's got to be really serious investment. I mean, for example, I went to visit a podiatrist, and they were, they didn't really have their stuff. They had their clinical things prepared, because you have to, otherwise you lose your license. So you pay attention to that. What we're talking about, you don't pay attention because nobody's going to take away your livelihood. If you do nothing we say, you will still have a business. But will it be successful? Okay. There isn't somebody saying, do you have your soft skills protocol license from Dana Russell? Right? They don't have that. But if for those that want to excel and exceed and have a nice relationship with your patients, you got to be great at that, because they weren't prepared. Like, why do I have to touch that pen? Why can't you why couldn't I give the credit card information over the phone? Why am I touching these things? And yes, I brought my spray sanitizer for myself, and the assistants knew better. They were spraying me off there, but the front had no clue. Right.
Mhm.
And so we want to, because of, and Larry talked about this, already the anxiety with people, we don't want to add to it. We want to make it a safe place. So great points, Dana. Great points. Larissa, I know you're a big fan on the paperless office. And one of the other things as well is technology that you were talking to me about the other day, and how important that is as to, yes, become a more paperless, and some tactics maybe, like even Dana was alluding to, and Larry, that we can maybe get their credit card information early so we don't have to touch it. You can say, for your convenience, we can take your credit information now, so we don't have to interact financially at the office. What are some tactics that you find from a paperless technology perspective that can help offices have a better patient experience and minimize unnecessary clerical interaction?
Hello, Alex. So yes, we spoke about how there's these softwares that will help the office send out text messages, emails, which they can require the patients to fill out the paperwork before they come in, which means on the side where the office space allows and they're limiting the interaction with the patient, it's also looking at being more efficient. Once you have all that in before the patient walks in, the office is going to be more well prepared for who's coming in, and the experience is going to be even more seamless. They're going to have a lot of a better experience when they come in. One thing though, when we've been in dentistry for so long, we know patients don't like to give their credit card numbers. There's a lot of verbiage that we can use, definitely, but there's also technology. A lot of people are now using the Clover. I'm not making any type of advertisement here, but with Clover, you can actually send a payment link to the patient where they can make a payment from their phone. So again, you're cutting that interaction, and you're not storing their credit card number, which again, HIPAA. So, the less that you have in your office, the best. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help make the process seamless and more efficient. There's one thing also that I would like to add. It's not technology, but the Feel, Felt, and Found dialogues by Heather that we see on the trainings online. That's a great line to use with your patients right now. I understand how you feel. Other patients felt the same way. So once they found out what we were doing to keep you safe, they felt safe coming into the office. So that's also, some good verbiage to use.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get to Heather about that. And I think you raise a good point with respect to HIPAA. And just a shout out to Dr. Lauren Levine, the digital dentist, does a lot of great stuff for us in advisement on HIPAA. But with HIPAA, we do have to be mindful of that. There are some resources and some technologies that you want to make sure if you're doing teledentistry that they're HIPAA compliant, and everything you're doing is HIPAA compliant. Like you said, credit card information that can be done. There are many services that can do that. And I think the fact that doing paperwork ahead of time will no longer be necessarily optional. We can start to really encourage that or make it mandatory. So much easier, because I went to these doctors, again, doing this, putting my life at risk for all of you, right? So I went to these doctors and I'm like, why am I filling out paperwork and touching things? Why couldn't you send this to me beforehand? I could have done this, save time. So this will, like you said, Larissa, this will provide efficiencies and help with the patient experience. So we talked about credit card information, less things you have to touch, reminders, text messages. And this does not mean because we have efficiencies, we're still going to stop. We're not going to be using the phone. Quite the contrary. We're going to use the phone even more because we can. And we're going to get, and when I get to Heather, actually I'll transition to Heather because I have to get to Eric and everything else in a moment. But I think it makes the phone even more important nowadays because that's where you're going to be able to master. And so great points, Larissa. Thank you. So let me turn to Heather because Larissa kind of segued here. But yeah, one of the things you teach about in the program for the phone skills is smile when you're on the phone. And they don't see it. But they're going to see also when you smile, you can smile with your eyes, as Larry was talking about. But practicing and role playing in front of a mirror, even if they never see you or see you fully, this is going to help you not only over the phone, but even in person, even with a mask, that you can use hand gestures, whatever, that Heather even encourages you when you're on the phone. You should see her on the phone. She's hand gesturing. She's talking. I'm like, who are you talking to? They can't see you. Her face is doing all these funny things. And I'm like, you're creating unnecessary wrinkles for nobody seeing it. So tell us about that, Heather. As Larissa was saying, that the verbiage in the phone can really be helpful in the situation.
Yeah, I think I joked about it before that there's this I don't want to say the word because it's a bad word, but it's a resting bee face, where you sit there and you don't realize that your face looks like you're mad at somebody. And I think some people don't notice it, but they have that resting bee voice. And so when we're talking to people on the phone, we have to be enthusiastic. I once had a doctor that I was so excited to finally called me back, and because dentists never forget to call back, right? And he called me back, and I got so excited. I screamed, or not screamed, but kind of got excited. And he said, "You just screamed in my ear." And I said, "That's how excited I am to speak to you." And it was like, you don't take it personally. You just have fun and talk to everybody as if they're your friend. I think we talked about that last week. It's being conscious of, when you talk to somebody, you have a different voice than when you talk to somebody that's new. The other thing that you touched on before, Alex, and I think we talked about setting the expectation the other day, but that's the reason, and we discussed training, that cross training is so, so important, especially now that a lot of times offices will say, well, this front office is going to practice this aspect. They're going to go over phones, and the back is going to practice clinical stuff. But all the best companies have cross training where everybody has a working understanding and appreciation, even if they're not doing it, of what the other people are doing. So that way it is seamless. So that's important. Like if you look at companies like Chick-fil-A, if you look at companies like the Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks, they all do cross training. There's no, this is your area. You only study things that are for treatment coordinators. There's no, you handle scheduling. You only study things for schedulers. You're in the clinical team. You don't have anything to do with phones. Everybody has to have an understanding and appreciation of what each person is doing. So that way it flows naturally in the office. The other thing that we talked about yesterday is, as far as setting the expectation when it comes to the patient experience, starts with the first phone call. So it's not just, they show up in the office and everything is going to go great. We have to do a really good job up front of setting the expectation, letting the patients know
that we care about them, that they are going to be safe, what we're going to be doing to prepare for their appointment. Because I think, we had somebody commenting yesterday that they were disappointed that they're having some cancellations, and, the people that they're putting on the schedule, they're spending a lot of time to set up for, with all the sterilization and new thing. So we really need to let the patient know that we're doing a lot of preparation to make sure that you're safe. And in that, we want to make sure that you're going to also, come to your appointment. So.
That's some great points. I just kind of jokingly, I hear Heather on the phone. I'm like, I wish she would talk like that to me. So nice, like so nice to them. And she's a nice person. But those are really, really great points. And yes, so thank you, Heather. Nothing to comment, just on the spot. I want to turn over to Eric Vickery. You made a great point yesterday. Tell me about friction problem. What's a friction problem? What is it, and how do we avoid it in this patient experience?
So friction, thanks, Alex. Friction is a business term that a lot of companies just use to understand how do we remove friction so people can do business with us. And in your best experiences, like raving fans experience, you will have zero friction. So like, the big companies out there that make it easy to swipe and order and have it delivered to your door have removed friction. In dentistry, we have a lot of friction. And so I've been working with offices on case acceptance since 2001, which seems like that's impossible. And we've always said, in order to make case acceptance really simple, you have to remove friction from the conversation, from the system, from the interaction. Now, with everything that's happening now, we're adding another level of friction because we're going to have no reception area. All these things we're doing now for precautions create the perception of friction. So how do you and your team downplay that with the ability to get people in and make it seem seamless, like we've been talking about? We've stated that for all these years, case acceptance starts with the phone, or does it? And it's really prior to that, when the patient is in your chair and they're having an amazing experience that has no friction involved, so you can keep moving through, and then they go tell other people. That's when case acceptance starts. When I go tell Larry, man, you're going to love this Dr. Nottingham. He's amazing. This is what happened. He calls and has the same great experience. Because if your system is flowing, you're going to get those case acceptance numbers that you want. We can't just go back and have patient experience be emergency room type settings. We have to go back to how we were doing it before, with doing as much dentistry per patient as possible, which means your case acceptance has to be amazing. You have to have no friction involved with this, or as little as possible, or the perception of that, so that the patient says yes to doing as much dentistry as possible as soon as they get back in the office. We can't be doing one thing at a time, boom, boom, boom. If we do this emergency room thing, our daily goal is going to be way too low. We've got to have that 80% of the people scheduling something and 60% of the treatment we present being scheduled. If we don't hit those numbers, we're going to have a real hard time hitting our supercharged daily goal like Larry's been talking about. So, yeah.
Very succinct. Well done. Well done. Yeah, yes, so what I'm hearing from you is we're encountering more friction. And again, I think what occurred to me is that, again, back to the theme, is that we need to be able, more than ever, all these things where we were able to get off by not having, like Dana said, a training protocol, by not having Heather's phone skills, by not using the technology Lewis was talking about, or having the seamless experience, we could fudge around a little bit and it may make it work. Like really, there's very little tolerance now, because the ones who are doing it right, okay, that having a good experience. Because, for example, I went to the doctor and the front office was not up to snuff. Like I said, I'm a great example. Heather's an easy patient, not me. I'm not a pain, but I want good service, okay? And I don't want to be doing things that don't make sense. And so, I'm questioning everything, right? I was always that kid, like, what is that? Why do we have to do that? Why that? So that was me. And so I come in, and do I have to sign in? Can I just give you my name? Yes, you have to sign in. There's like one doctor. Which doctor? What time? Why? Okay, so that was one. Then it was like, well, you're going to pay the office visit or a copay? Well, it depends. If she's going to have to prescribe other things, then I want that. Can I just pay at the end? No, it's our policy. You pay now. Okay. And do you have hand sanitizer after I touch this pen everybody else is touching? No, but you can wash your hands later. Okay. I'm thinking, I'm totally going to walk out and go somewhere else. And I'm like, all right.
That's all the friction. That's all friction. It's all bad marketing, and it's all bad case acceptance.
It is terrible. And I'm thinking to myself, so I had some compassion and I said, okay, well, they're not trained. The doctor was great. And actually the doctor was great. The assistants, they were spraying everything. They were opening doors. They had it down. This goes to what Heather was saying. Everybody's got to be cross-trained. The assistants have, by nature, they're with the patients a lot, and they can be unpleasant too. But you can't have everybody unpleasant. But let's just say that and it won't work. But let's say at least your back office is pleasant, the doctor and the assistants, and you like them, and they got your back and they're spraying things off and you have a good experience there. Like it's got to be all seamless. So that was that. But that's where I want to go to you, Robyn. Robyn, policy. What the heck? Okay.
Actually, Larry, go ahead. I saw your hand up.
You're muted.
Larry's you sound good muted. And then we'll go to Larry and then Robyn. You have to, I think I muted you, Larry.
I get it. I can do that. No, what I was going to say is one of those small nuances. We're not accustomed to talking to patients through our mask, not necessarily. And so one of the questions that you might anticipate is people can't hear me and they may not bring it up. So we may have to remember to say, I'm not used to having to talk to people through a mask. I'm hoping you can understand me. Let me know if I'm not being clear. If you don't ask them that question, they may not bring it up, and they may feel like, I didn't understand anything that you just said to me.
You're saying the team members need to make sure that they're clarifying that they heard everything clearly with the patient. It's their duty to make sure that things were communicated.
Yep. If you're going to have them use a pen, you may hold up the canister and let them pull a pen out. Or right. if you give them one, you can say, I just sterilized this.
That's right.
I just sanitized this for you. And then let them see you sanitize it when you put it back. I mean, it's the smaller nuances that they can actually see
right.
What you're doing, but also explaining.
Right. So in this, the case study I showed you, they were unpleasant even before that. But the case study I was showing you was that not only that, so you're taken to another level. So first of all, they weren't really being compassionate. I felt bad for them because they were unprepared. They were not trained. You can tell. They had no idea. They were reactive. But how could that have been better? Right? Well, you wouldn't have me do all these friction steps. I don't have to because they don't make sense. And if you did, you would have a reasoning for my protection with love and support. Like they were cowering away from me and I felt bad. So I stopped pushing because it's like, they're like, that's that patient. And I'm going to spit in his shoe or something. I don't know. But anyways, the point is there are some things you can do, right? You can explain it. Like we've been saying, you can say, here's a fresh pen. You can keep it, or I will sanitize it for you. Okay. Cause I need you to sign it, but you have a response. So if I'm like, I don't want to sign the credit card form, can you sign it? No, but you know what? I'm going to sanitize it nicely for you. Here you go. How does that? You're prepared for the pain in the what.
Right.
Patient.
Well, just go ahead and do it anyway. Well, here, let me
sanitize
this.
You're right.
You can go ahead
You're right.
and sign it.
You're absolutely right. You need to be doing that. So yeah, picking up on that, Robyn, that was my frustration, is this whole, they're hiding behind policy being, I'm not sufficiently prepared to handle the situation. Okay. That was frustrating. So tell me about that, the patient experience. What are some other pitfalls and how can we make this a great experience best we can?
Well, number one, that was actually Larry's comment, not mine. I can't take credit. Number two, I think everybody should have their license from Dana Russell on their soft skills. And really to piggyback what Dana and Heather and Larissa and Eric are talking about, and Larry just made it a really good point, is setting that expectation. Dana mentioned about people being angry, or what are you talking about? Or what do you mean you need this? none of us like change, right? One of the best seminars I went to, the title was "Nobody Likes Change Except for a Wet Baby." So all of us are accustomed to our habits. And so when there is something new, it really is up to us on the phone call to let patients know what to expect. And Heather talked about this, getting the commitment, talking about, when you arrive, these are the things we're going to have in place for you. We may ask you those questions again, and we are going to take extra steps to ensure your safety. We need to know that you're committed to this appointment at this time. So now more than ever, I think it is getting the commitment, setting those expectations, and utilizing technology to really make it such a great experience that they go, oh, these guys got it. I felt safe. They made me feel comfortable. Yeah, it was a little weird, a little strange. I'm used to seeing people in the reception area. I'm used to having a cup of coffee before I go in. But those things are going to change for now. There is no permanency to all of this just yet. My own personal experience, a little anecdote, with the Great Call process. I called the hardware store because I'm redoing my office, which is why I'm in the dining room. So I asked if they had a certain thing, and the guy on the phone was so excited and so welcoming. And he's like, you know what? I'm not really sure. Let me go check. And he goes, and who, or what did he say? He said, and what's the name that goes with this lovely voice? And I thought, what a great way to ask my name. So I'm like, oh, you're so sweet, and gave him my name and my phone number. And, because he's like, I'm going to put you on hold, and, I might hang up on you, and I'm sorry, so I'll call you back. So I just thought it was a really sweet experience. Another great way to ask somebody's name. So, again, creating that experience on the phone. And then when they get there, they are going to see something different. The idea of, if I may, Larry, the idea of policy is, you're putting up barriers, you're creating that friction, like Eric said. When it says it's our policy, it means you're inflexible. It means you're rigid, and, you're not going to color outside the lines, which means I'm a number, not a person. So, as much as we talk about verbiage skills and messaging and, the soft skills, everything really does have to be authentic, and you have to know that there's a person on the other side of this phone. There's a person attached to the tooth. Dr. Pankey talked about that. So it is I think a more imperative skill to have now is to have those soft skills when we're talking to patients, behind the mask, that we can only use our eyes and our facial expressions, and to really, make that connection as quickly and easily as possible, so that we do create that great experience in a definitely an uncertain time that none of us have experienced before.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Beautifully said, with a beautiful face, beautiful person. There you go. But it's amazing what that person did, and just, made your day. And negativity is contagious and positivity is contagious. This is neuroscience. This is science. It's the way it is. Humans are meant for relationship. That's why we're, continuing to open up despite whatever the moving average is, because we got to still get connection. And whether you're in a mask, whatever it is, we're resourceful as human beings. We'll find a wonderful way to do it and learn from it. And these are some great insights that we're getting. What I like to shift to, I want to say one thing, and then I want to kind of end. I want to talk about the 5 P's of the patient experience and see if there's anything we're missing, and if we can take 1 or 2 questions that we have. One of the things I want to say is we have some amazing, talented coaches on this call, and it's really cool. And one of the things that I ask them to do, because I get a lot of questions and a lot of it's customized, but if you need to speak with any of them in particular, they'll make themselves available for a 30-minute free consultation, whether it's about the patient experience, working with your team, even PPP issues, whatever. financial trackers, whatever it is. They're very well versed, but they will make themselves available because otherwise we'll spend 2 hours on specific Q&As to do that. And for those who, I know Ace Goreg, one of our Titanium Mastermind members, he loves coaching. I mean, his number one thing is, you want to build your business, you get a coach. And look, I may be biased being an all-star CEO, but also I work for Tony Robbins, and coaching has been huge. And Heather and I spend a lot of money on our own personal coaching, and it's made a huge difference, not just financially, but also personally, enjoying life, because we're relationship beings, and it's huge to have a great coach by your side to hold you accountable, to work with you, inspire you, and that they know things you don't know. It's good to grow. So anyway, something to think about. The 5 P's of the patient experience. So the first is phone call. And we talked a lot about that in the patient journey part 1. The preparation. This stage is where we're prepared for the patient. And before the patient exam or that protocol, there's the tour. What's going to be different about the tour? So a patient comes in, let's say a new patient. How does a tour change? Maybe I can send this to Larry and everybody else wants to comment. How will that change with respect to new patients? We still want to take new patients. How can that change, and what can we do? Larry, let's see if you can unmute. Go ahead. You have to hit unmute, Larry. Okay. There we go.
The tour itself can still take place. We just wouldn't walk up and down the office hallways pointing out every treatment room and section and things like that. But you can give them a brief tour of the office, standing right at the front desk when they come in, and just say, hey, let me kind of give you an idea of what we have here, and you can just point to things, but you can still let them know, although we're going to time your appointments to minimize the amount of time that you have in the office, we still have a reception room. So if you do get here early, you can sit down, that would be okay. And we do have treatment rooms designated for the doctor as well as for the hygienist. When the doctor wants to talk to you privately, he may still even ask you to sit in the consultation room. Here's all of us here at the front desk. I have access to your records. So does Susie, who I work with. So if you ever call and have questions, both of us, can be able to look up your records and should be able to answer questions for you. We also have an area in the back where we do our own training and have lunch and meetings and things like that. And finally, we do have a sterilization area down the hall as well. You might see it as we're going to your treatment room. But my point here is that you can still do a tour, but you could just explain to them the things that you have. They're going to want to hear that you have that infection control room,
yes,
that you have that sterilization area.
Yes, and I think part of the tour and part of where Heather talks about in the Ask the Appointment step of the great call process is setting the expectation, painting a picture. So imagine, this is the seamless experience I was talking about. Get a wonderful phone call, and you already have a visualization of what's going to happen. You have your, as Larissa was saying, you have your technology taken care of beforehand. Maybe it's credit card or certainly new patient forms. You know what it's going to be like coming in. Even on the phone, you're letting them know about the office, letting them know about how there'll be social distancing and you'll be protected and all these different things. You tell them about what you're doing. What do they say is you tell them again, in any type of it's like a presentation. Okay. And they come into the office and Assistant Larry comes out. That's a beautiful dress and nice, just messing, but he's got the mask on, whatever. But Larry shows them around, like he was saying, but also reinforces the specific protocols of how we're keeping you safe. Okay. And even so, and we may be feeling like we're being repetitive, because we keep saying it over and over again, but the patient hasn't heard it.
No.
So it's going to be repetition of phone call, repetition of this situation. But you got to imagine this. We say the patient journey. You got to imagine I'm a patient. What would be ideal for me to go through this experience with minimal friction and feel safe? And imagine it with your team. and then act that out and prepare for the scenarios. We can give you verbiage and all this up whatever, but you have to actually practice. So Larry, I think that's great. So what you're saying to me, we're not throwing away the tour.
No.
We're still going to do it.
Still,
it's still key.
It's very important that you still do it. It's more of a lay of the land. Let me give you an idea of what you have here, because you'd still want to point out the patient, bathroom if you need to use it or whatever. We still have those things. It's one of those old adages, we've always talked about it. And so it's more important today than it ever was before, but you shouldn't do anything without explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that will answer a lot of all these questions. So think of the things that you want to do. What are you doing? I'm taking your payment. Why am I doing it that way? Because that's what you need to explain to the patient. So that we can minimize the amount of time you have here in the office, and so that you could be dismissed as quickly as possible. I'm going to ask you for your credit card payment now so that we could go ahead and take care of it and not do it while you're here. So think of what you're doing. Why are you doing it?
And Rebecca makes a nice point, kind of close to my heart. She's a big fan of Tony Robbins and saying, Tony would say that you would want to make your office look impressive and busy, but do you think that current patients don't want it so busy? And my response to that is, you got to think about the patient's perspective. You want the business to look competent. I think you want it to look busy in terms of that we see patients, but you don't want it where there's going to be a lot of interaction. You want it. If I'm a patient, and I think it was Robyn who was talking yesterday about Chick-fil-A and how you want to go. They have all their stuff together. Everything was prepared for you. And you may see, I think it's okay to have them see patients are moving, but you're not interacting with the patients. Well, but you are the number one.
Right. But what that has to do with, Alex, is attentiveness.
Yes.
Even if yours is a bigger office, if patients feel like they're not being attended to, then they're going to feel like, well, you're too busy for me. That could happen in a small office.
Yes.
If people aren't greeted immediately when they walk through the door, when the phone isn't picked up in the correct number of rings, if our tone of voice makes us sound like we're too busy and we can't be bothered. So if we're attentive to people, they will always feel like you have enough time, that you're not too busy. We also have to remember today that people want premium service. And so, they all want 5-star. Problem is nobody wants to pay for it, but they all want it. And one way of making it seem like it's premium for a patient is to make it personal. So I kind of want to piggyback on the guy who was talking to Robyn and said, "Oh, who is this lovely person?" Although I'm convinced the guy's flirting with you, but you've been away from it for a while. But my point is, it's just like just saying things like, "Oh, I remember you." You know what I mean? Or it's so good to hear from you again. You know what I mean? I'm glad that you called us back, or that we're having this opportunity to talk. Any way that you could make the experience more personal to the patient, they're gonna equate that with premium service. I still remember you like a blanket. I still remember you like cherry covered, whatever.
And so you're still looking at patient notes and doing the things, the things that we teach. Anyway, and the last point I want to make about Tony Robbins to Rebecca is actually Heather and I have been to many of his programs, and a lot of the inspiration from him we put in the program. He is big on rapport skills from Dr. Erickson, and it's not him. He's citing the great psychological minds that rapport is the key. So some people don't like a busy office. They think that they don't want to. They say, "Oh, I'm paying for that. That's what the doctor might, that they have the biggest thing." And some people like that. It's a question of the right crowd. But I think right now people still want a seamless experience. They want the 5-star, and they want to be protected, and they want that interaction. So it's quite a lot of needs. Not only do they still want the 5-star, but they still want to be protected and safe. And Larry, after preparation, the tour, we do the patient exam and the presentation. Are anything changing here? I.e., maybe instead of them then moving to another room for presentation, maybe everything's done in that room. Any recommendations on how that might change?
Initially, while we're kind of going through the pandemic and things are active, I would recommend that you probably do it right in the treatment room right now. But what I'm hoping is that things will become relaxed, that this virus isn't spread so easily, and that we could actually get back to going into into a consult room, someplace private, where patients we know feel more comfortable talking with you, and that the treatment coordinator could be there. I would not want them to be there remotely, like looking into a screen and you're on Skype with each other, from one room to the other room, or anything like that. But for the time being, I think it's probably, you can feel out the patient, but it's probably best to minimize their movement through the office, because things all have to be disinfected and all of that in ways that we didn't have to do it before. So I think right now, you probably could just do it right in the treatment room, but as things calm down, I think we can just get back to normal.
And it's hard to make a blanket recommendation. That's why we don't want to get so much on the health aspect, because it can change based on therapeutics, if there's a vaccine, based on the amount of different states and counties have different types of rulings.
Well, like when Eric talks about in case acceptance, if you're confused about what's important to the patient, ask them, is this something that's important to you? Tell me how concerned you are with this. You can do the same thing and say, hey, Ms. Jones, I'd like to go sit down with you and talk in a private area. Are you okay with that? Ask them. If they say, well, I don't think we should be moving around that much, you know what I mean? Then don't do it. But just say, you know what, I'd like to sit down and talk with you privately. We just have to remember that when you leave that area, it all has to be, sprayed and wiped and then resprayed and all
that
of
can
that.
Talk in your verbiage. You can say the room is disinfected. It's just safe. It also keeps you away from patients walking around. It would be, we can talk there. So there can be,
Right.
That can be part of your verbiage. Okay.
Yeah, but you could ask them. And I think that, now this is Larry talking, but I think that you could safely remove them from the treatment room to a consult room. And you can still keep it very, very safe and do that. But that's Larry talking. Maybe not everybody feels the same way.
And I think in the program, you're okay with certainly presenting smaller treatment in the room.
In the treatment
room.
But
as
right.
you get more complex treatment, the thing we have to be mindful of, that if that room is taken up, you're also taking up rooms, and you can slow down efficiencies and things like that. So what Larry always says is, you don't throw common sense out the window. We're giving you systems, we're giving you overall things. But one of the areas that we're really focusing on is that Dana talked about, that soft skills protocol. That's where you got to be great at that's why it doesn't matter what it is, because we're kind of going off a moving target. Things are changing. But our verbiage and those skills never change. If you are role playing and practicing, you can adapt to whatever the situation. If you're not, then you're going to hide behind policy or something else and be reactive and hurt that. And so the 5 P's of the patient experience: phone call, preparation, which includes the tour, the patient exam, we talked about that in presentation, and then the last step is just follow-up processes, which is just you're doing follow-up. You keep communication, picking up that phone. Not relying. I think Larissa will be the first to agree. You don't become, just because I have a text messaging system, an email system, I'll just do that. Because that is, I don't want to say lazy, but I think people sometimes don't want to pick up the phone for fear of rejection, or it's just more work to do. But the phone is amazing, and it's so much more important now because it's a great, safe way we can interact with the patient, and we don't have to put our face mask on when we're on the phone. They can hear us more distinctly. We can really do a lot of that rapport building stuff on the phone. And that's another thing too. There might be some conversations that either a doctor may have or a team member may want to have on behalf of the doctor, whatever, that can be done before or after to keep the conversation going, to build that. Of course, after major procedures or interaction, doctor has additional time, call the patient. Oh my goodness. Call the patient. It's like some profit call. They love it to hear the dentist call. Okay. It's amazing. These are things that we can do. We have the technology and we have the time to do it. So those are all things to keep in mind, the patient experience. I just want to lastly run through everybody. Is there anything else you want to add about the patient experience that we didn't get a chance to cover? Anybody have anything? Dana?
I don't know what part of that it would fit into, but the feedback I'm getting from a lot of my clients, the biggest issue that they're doing dry runs and they're running through all this, they're not thinking about assistants and doctors are so used to pulling their mask down to talk to patients, and they're not thinking about it. So they're in the room and they're going, oh, and it's, so when they practice, they've really got to keep that mask on. And like Larry said, can you hear me? Can you understand me? You know, say to your patient, you know, I'd love to shake your hand, but I can't right now, you know, so I'm really glad you're here. Or you can't tell, but I'm really smiling right now.
I like that.
You know, just have fun with it, but be personal. But man, talk to your team about remembering that mask, because that's some of the biggest stuff I'm getting back as we keep forgetting.
It's a great point. That's a great point. Eric, looks like, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, with everything we're talking about here, seamless and removing friction, I think sometimes we're, as doctors or maybe team members, whatever it is, we're afraid to engage in a conversation that we haven't practiced. And if we're all going to be responsible for case acceptance and moving the patient through this process, then we all have to be comfortable with those skills, no matter what they are. So if you're an assistant, you can get to a place where you're trained to present it chairside. It doesn't have to be an administrative person coming from the front to the operatory. So as a doctor, I would challenge my team and say, who wants to step up?
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I'm looking at the faces. I think everybody seems sufficiently pleased with their responses. And thank you, Robyn, for manning the chat and answering some of the questions that were there. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming. And thank you, Larry Guzzardo. Thank you, Dana Russell. Thank you, Heather Nottingham, Robyn Reis, Larissa Bertoni, and Eric Vickery. Thank you all for being so generous and being here. And until we meet again, go out there and be an all-star.
An all-star.
Well, that was pretty good, guys. That was pretty good. You have an echo going?